Hi folks, you're with us today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about um, so-called or alleged intelligent people, bright people, smart people, or allegedly smart people, who just fully accept, do not question, and blindly repeat the globalist talking points. Now, I know quite a few people who are in the the economic upper echelons of Sydney society, and senior judges, senior public servants, business execs, these sort of people, and I don't think any one of them that got their positions purely or primarily on merit. So that's certainly something to keep in mind here. But pretty much all of them. Would I say all? Yes, I'd say all of them are very much on board with the globalist project and repeat the globalist talking points, no matter how implausible. Every one of them thinks Trump is Hitler, for example, or claims to. I don't think they actually have thought about it, but that's what they've been told to think. Now, here's people who are living in the most expensive postcodes in Australia. I don't think any of them will be living in a house that's worth less than $5 million, and that's the primary residence. That doesn't include their investment properties and their weekend getaways in the mountains or down the coast or something like that. So their beach houses and everything. So they have guaranteed incomes. They have huge sums of money they're sitting on, and they're sort of the net worth, the absolute net worth, including all their properties and some cases, the very generous retirement plans they're on they're all worth, say, 15 to 35, 40 million. They're all in that range. So they're doing okay. They're not filthy rich, but they're not Bill Gates rich or something. But they're doing pretty good. They don't have to worry about money. Now, they're not in the private Learjet or the helipad landing strip or something in their houses, but they're actually one of them does have a helipad landing strip, but they're doing pretty good. Now, they're all college educated. They've all been to Ivy League high schools, and or maybe one or two of them haven't been, but certainly schools in the upper half. A couple of them have been to the most Iviest Ivy League schools in Australia, and they've been to the Ivy League universities and colleges. So they've had on balance, the best education available. They've had access to the best jobs, the best paid, and so on. Now, whether they didn't get those jobs on merit. In fact, I don't think any of them did. They got it on connections and social class and things like that. I'm surprised they accept me to the extent they do, because I don't have that same background. But they seem to. Maybe I'm a court jester and don't realise. But anyway, so I'm often sitting at dinners and lunches and barbecues and get-togethers and so on with these people. So I don't tell them, my thoughts or views, or if I gently say, well, Trump can't be that bad, can he? I get dark looks. So I have to be a little careful at times, and because I want them to open up and tell me what they're thinking. That's how I get the raw material for some of these videos I do. But what intrigues me is these are ostensibly at least the brightest amongst the brightest people in the community. Certainly the better off, and again with the best education. Yet their comprehension of world affairs and world issues is infantile. Not so much the men as the women. The women are super infantile, and the men not quite as infantile, but infantile nonetheless. So he's a public servant who reached the very apex of the public service in the government and in the education department. So he was very well paid, and he's just recently retired, and he's got a very generous retirement package. So the retirement is something like three times or 3.5 times the average wage, plus various other benefits such as travel and this, that, and the next thing. So he's looking pretty good. He owns everything, and he's got no debts. Now he's not super rich, but his house would be maybe not quite 5 million, but certainly more than 4 million. And he's got, again, some investment properties and the beach house and that sort of stuff. So he's doing pretty good. But his comprehension of international politics or international issues, geopolitics is like one of these girls that runs around with the climate change placards in the street. He's got that level of comprehension. I don't care who's president of the United States as long as it's not Trump. It could be anybody. I don't care. Things, utterances like that, just ridiculous things, and his interpretation of Trump's been found with the nuclear codes in his golf course house. The nuclear codes. The world could have blown up with the nuclear codes, and Trump had them. That just goes to show you that he's Hitler. And the guy he's getting all emotional and getting all worked up about it. And he said, "Well, no, there's no nuclear codes." Yes, he does. Don't you try and defend him, you fucking Nazi. He doesn't say that, but I think you get the idea. But looking at all these people, a book came out recently that said that really, by this raving activist, that really black people, they'd invented spaceships to the moon, and making the most ridiculous claims of how the contribution black people supposedly made to society, and naturally it was heralded by the glitterati and the globalist supported NGO screaming set as being factual and see black people have always been geniuses. Now clearly it was utter raving nonsense. Yet at one barbecue out, which is quite a lot of people there, and they had this big table all sitting down. There must have been, I don't know, 25 plus people there, and somehow this this book came up, and the chattering classes, the wives all come, "Oh yes, what a wonderful! I've got one." They say, "Oh yeah, I got one too. Oh, I got two, and I got one, and I got another one for my daughter or son." And so they're all the women sort of. It was almost like a chain reaction thing where all the women around the table were saying how wonderful this book was. Now the book is just lies and arrant nonsense beginning to end. I mean, you wouldn't piss on it. Seriously, it's that bad. And yet they're all raving about how wonderful it is, and that they're virtue signaling how virtuous they are by saying how great this book is, and this sort of thing. Now, whether they would do this under the cold, hard light of reality, but they don't live lives of reality, these people. Their wealth means they can separate themselves from reality and separate themselves from the hoi polloi and the concerns of the hoi polloi. So they say mass immigration, illiterate peasants from the third world is a good thing. Oh, the diversity and the inclusion and virtue. But when you press them on it, I don't want these people living next to me. Hey, they can go and live in the slum suburbs. I don't want them living next to me. I don't want my daughter. I don't want those guys hanging around my daughter. Just hey, let's just take it easy here. So they're only interested in mass migration, or prepared to support it, provided it has no impact or effect on them. They do like the idea they can get cheap labour to come along and do their swimming pool, or clean their swimming pool, or mow their lawn or something like that. But other than that, they don't want anything to do with it. And if if a bunch of black or brown people looking rather furtive are hanging around near their house, they'll call the police. But they won't say, well, mass migration has brought this closer to my doorstep, therefore mass migration is a problem, or the sort of people that have been picked for mass migration. They won't go that far. They just say, get the problem away from me. As long as the problem's somewhere else, as long as it's in the suburb down the road, then I don't care. It's a good thing. It's only a bad thing if it affects or impacts me. So this is very much the attitude that they take. The same with things like the global warming stuff. They think it's cute that their 15-year-old daughter goes out to these climate marches and waves placards, and the mother will actually sit down and help the daughter make a placard or something. That's considered really cute. Oh, isn't she cute? Oh, look what she's doing. Oh, she's so involved in political affairs. Isn't this fantastic? Oh, wow. She thinks she's saving the world. Isn't it cute? So that they look at it from sort of that perspective. Privately and quietly, they may think that she's just doing some teenage silly nonsense there, but they pretend, and I think genuinely do support it in quite a few instances. So again, people that have had the best schools, the best education, the best colleges are behaving this way in the same way that a teenage girl that knows nothing about nothing would behave. The difference between the 15-year-old daughter that does the climate change stuff and says diversity is wonderful, and the behaviour and utterances of the parents, there's no difference. And yet the 15-year-old daughter's stuff, 14-year-old, 15-year-old daughter, is very unsophisticated, very simplistic, very silly, very childlike, very infantile, and displays no understanding of the nuances of the issues or the cumulative impact today and down the track, or that if the fellow citizens are suffering quite badly because of that. There's no understanding of the wider picture there, and the two seem the same. The parent, the 56-year-old parents have no difference of view than the silly little 15-year-old idiot girl or daughter. The two think and say the same things. Now, I was having dinner with some people. There's more of them were women there, and we were sitting down with them, and they were talking about how racism and misogyny are really big issues in the West. Now, these are people that have travelled fairly widely and in some cases lived in different countries where they know full well that on a relative basis, misogyny is like zero in the West, and racism is very tame here compared to pretty much all other places around the world. And I've travelled to all these other places, so I can speak from first-hand knowledge and experience. But they insist on misogyny is really, misogyny is terrible. Misogyny is, I went to a meeting once, and the way the men looked at me there, I could tell they weren't treating me seriously. It's only because I'm a woman. Well, no, it wasn't because you're a woman. It's because you were given that job through affirmative action, even though you had no expertise or qualifications or credentials to be doing that job. That's why they would have been looking at you. And it's nothing to do with just because I didn't say that, incidentally, but they wanted to say any at any time in their working lives or in any situation where they weren't fully respected as being the smartest person in the room, then that's misogyny, that's fascism, it's Nazism, it's Hitler. And rather than say, well, actually, I got affirmative action into that job, even though I had no qualifications, they gave me, instead of looking at it from that perspective, which would be the realistic one, they look at it the other way around and insist it's misogyny. So we've got these people again, these women who've benefited hugely from Western society compared to others, and yet they're saying that misogyny and racism and homophobia are just everywhere. You ask me, well, have you personally experienced it? Yeah, I went to a meeting once and the men didn't treat me with absolute deference and groveling respect. So that's misogyny. So they're examples of what they see as misogyny. So, another woman who's not bad looking, actually. when they were having a big client meeting, she was asked, or so she says, she was asked by the CEO to wear something sexy, like wear something tight fitting, show a bit of leg or something like that. Now they'd already over promoted her, they'd given her a job there's no way she would have been qualified for back at the time, and I think they gave her that job because she was reasonably glamorous. Now, while she likes to accept the plaudits that she was a glamorous hot babe, she pretends to be outraged that the management of the company, or the CEO in this case, so she says, wanted her to to look sexy at some client meeting or something like that. I tried to point out to her, well, isn't that a compliment? Like, isn't he saying that you look really hot? And so, no, he's a misogynist. So these people have this very narrow view that accords fully with the globalist project and all the methodologies used by the globalists to create social division, to destroy Western society, destroy its history and its culture, including slavery. If I mentioned they seem to bang on about slavery, well, it's true, the slavery, when white people are so bad. But what about when the Arabs did it? What about when the blacks enslaved each other? Oh, well, no, they don't have to take responsibility. Only white people should take responsibility for the slavery. Slavery's been going on for like 10,000 years. Why uniquely focus on what white people are bad, white people are all Hitler? And again, they just blindly follow the talking points and don't accept any nuance. And the fact that slavery's been going on forever and was quite a common sort of method of acquiring labor necessary to do large-scale agricultural work or even to do public works. Then they no, not the same. And what about the blacks enslaving each other? Well, that's kind of okay because they're both black. So they revert back to this social power thing, that because blacks have equal social power, if they enslave each other, it's not really slavery because of the social power. Whereas, if whites enslave blacks, whites have greater social power, therefore it is bad. And so, fuck. And it's very difficult to listen to these silly childlike and childish interpretations and attitudes, but they're not interpreting anything. They're just taking the talking points, raw and unleavened from the globalist propaganda machine, repeating them, and they think this makes them good people. Not only good, but wise and sensible, well-informed and knowledgeable. So, another woman, she's encouraging her children to only have non-white historical heroes. So their heroes are, the usual clutch that the leftist activists go for. The only good people in history were Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, and I don't know, some other black guy, Martin Luther King, and so on. All white people are bad in history, but these three people, historical characters, are all good because they're encouraging her children to revere them, but to denounce all white historical figures as evil and bad. Well, what about the guy that invented the modern jet engine or something? Nah, evil. What about the guy that invented the modern rocket technology? Nazi, and so on. So no white person is ever morally good enough, and they've fallen into this trap of the relativity of social power and its criminality. So the more social power you have, the greater your criminality. Now, let's reflect that back to them. So, well, you have a lot of social power. You live in the richest suburbs of Australia. You have the most comfortable lifestyles. You don't have your children have gone to the most expensive private schools. So why, how is it that other white people have social power evil, but you're not evil? I don't know, phrase it like that instead. But but we virtue signal 24/7. So because we virtue signal 24/7, we're not the bad white people with evil social power. It's the other people who don't virtue signal. So they seem to give themselves a pass. The more they virtue signal, the more their social power that they denounce in all others as being evil. The more the more that they say that their own criminal association with the bad guys is excused simply because of their they're virtue signaling. But it illustrates, to me at least, it illustrates how just because someone's bright or had a great education doesn't mean that they have discernment. Where does discernment come from? And I may do another video on this, but why do you and I discern what's going on, but they don't? Or do they discern it but pretend not to see it because it's it would be considered, as in their circles at least, as being extremely indelicate to not hold these views? And I do put that forward as a plausible possibility. I don't think some of these people are really that stupid. But again, you come back to the thing, mass immigration is fine, provided it doesn't affect me. Climate change, price change is fine because I cost of energy, because I'm rich enough to not bother with it, or not have to bother with it, or I've put a $50,000 solar array on my roof of my house, plus on my other houses. I've just spent $100,000 on putting solar arrays there, so I don't have to pay for electricity. Now, some of these people have huge electricity footprints. They've got large swimming pools that are heated all year round, and they've got every imaginable electrical appliance. The ducted air conditioning, which they run 24/7, and these sorts of things. So they're still paying quite handsome electricity bills. What one guy I was talking to mentions electricity bill, which is must be 4 times the electricity bill that I get. And we're not vast users of electricity, but we don't avoid doing things because we don't want to use electricity. We still do things. We're just maybe a little bit more careful than might otherwise be. But he's paying 4 times more, and so he's got this huge. So his entire roof has got solar panels. You can't see the roof tiles for the fucking solar panels. So I assume that his solar array must not be working. So that's why he's paying these bills. Oh no, solar array is doing fine. His quarterly electricity bill was like $10,000 something before he put the fucking solar on there. but he can afford to put that sort of, he can afford the energy bills and afford the. But when I sort of mentioned the climate change forcing up the energy prices, that's making some of the poor people really struggle. So what? That's their lookout. It's their fault for not being rich. So a part of this is that the elites have managed to detach themselves from any sort of noblesse oblige or any obligation at all to the rest of society. They view themselves as a completely separate society from the rest of the people, their own fellow citizens. And this is something that's happened. Not that the elites haven't always viewed themselves as a separate society. I think they have, but they felt a certain obligation to their fellow citizens. We're all in this together, and politicians represented the people, and the public service represented an independent, impartial service to all citizens, and the law was applied equally to all, and equality under the law. That's all broken down. That entire social structure is broken down, and I think it's given a permission slip to the elites, not only to detach themselves, but to now openly sneer at the other people who are lower down the economic chain. Say, well, we're not even part of you. You're the you hoi polloi. If you're getting all mixed up with all this mass immigration of peasants, you're probably nothing to do with me. I don't care. I don't care if it's affecting you or having a negative effect. It doesn't affect me, and that's all I care about. So I can say I care about the environment. I love mass migration because it has no impact on me. And I don't care if it has a terrible negative impact on my fellow citizens because I'm now detached from them. They might as well live in a separate country for all I care. And this, I think, is where the fault line lies. This separation of people within a society. Those people have nothing to do with me. So the elites say, and because their wealth, they're detached from it. Now, again, I'll come back to another point here, which is key, is none of these people in my view, have earned their position. For example, one of the guys there who's done very well, who I quite like, he's quite charming and everything. I wouldn't call him that bright, but he's almost got childlike practical experience with life. He has no concept of life outside of his little bubble. Now he's walked straight into a good job in the public service because he went to a very elite private school, and nearly all the people he knows and met and knew at the school, they all went into, they've all gone into pretty senior jobs in public service, in the government, and educational institutions and so on. So they only hire in the senior level. They only hire each other into these jobs. They don't hire anyone. Very rarely, but maybe bringing junior people in or something. But they only hire people that they went to school with and they've known since high school and through college and so on. So they're very, very sort of thick with each other, these people. And so this guy's just been given one job after another. He's never attended an interview in his life. He's never had to worry about, will the money be there to pay the phone bill or the electricity bills. And, he's never had to worry about any of those things. All of it's there, and he's always had a well-paying job. His wife he met in that same social circle, and they got married. And then his kids went to the same school, the expensive private school that he went to. And it just sort of goes on. But I don't think he's ever had to face a meritorious sort of situation where he has to get hired on any sort of competitive. Well, he hasn't. He's never had it. He's got no concept of it. Now, the side from that though, the guy's not an idiot. You could have done worse than him, but he's certainly not top of the town. But he believed, sort of in his role in the public service, he had a belief that he was there to make the life of his fellow citizens better, to impartially discharge his responsibilities to the community and to the society at large. Now, he doesn't have that anymore. It's only the last few years, he's about to retire as well, actually. It's only the last few years that he seemed to have changed his view there, that the hoi polloi, the great unwashed, they no longer deserve his concern because they're all fascist, Nazi, racist, because they oppose mass migration, because it impacts them negatively, but that still makes them Nazis. Because they're Nazis, they don't deserve or entitled to it. So that's the other thing that's happened, I think, around the Western world. The globalist propaganda machine successfully said anyone doesn't believe in climate change or mass migration or that we're surrounded by misogynists and these sorts of things. Anyone that says that must be a Nazi, and they're the sort of people that vote for Trump, and they're the sort of people that no longer deserve. So, half plus of the society that we live in is too evil to deserve to be treated, well or equally or anything, because they've just simply got the wrong views. And that's had an effect on someone like him. So when he started in the public service, and I think through it, certainly when I first met him, he had a solemn duty to serve the wider society. And I met him, the first time I met this particular guy, I think about 10 years ago. But really in the last 3 to 4 years, he's switched. He's only there to look after. He's not there to impartially discharge his duties. He's there to contribute, not necessarily to the social engineering society, but to say, well, people that hold certain views are Nazis, they're evil, they're bad, they're simply not entitled to anything. And if their lives are more difficult or because they've got the wrong views, then that's just how it's meant to be. Those people are meant to suffer for their evilness and wickedness. So that's another side of this view of clever or what clever people are doing and behaving and what they're thinking. And given that the elites have detached themselves from the rest of society, then whenever that happens, throughout history, whenever that happens, the only bad things come of it. And I think we're on that rapidly accelerating downhill run now. And until the elites perceive themselves again as being part of society and part of their fellow, with their fellow citizens, we're all in it together. Until that happens, assuming it ever will happen again in the future, then we've got these problems which will multiply and eventually cause the complete disintegration our society and nation, which is perhaps where the globalists want to go with this. Anyway. I don't know if this is recoverable in terms of the elites deciding that they are part of society, and I don't know if they can anymore because the elites overwhelmingly are white and straight, and they've sold the rest of us out. But now 50% of or great part of the society. As soon as the white people, the baby boom generation, die off, which is going to be over the next 10 to 15 years, then the majority of people in all white countries will be non-white, and then the elites who are primarily white, unless they themselves get replaced. I don't know if they've thought that far ahead. They seem to all assume that they'll be there forever. Then if the rest of society is minority white, then they would have even further cause to say that we've got no relationship with the rest of these people. Now, I was sitting down, I can't remember, I think I was in Paris at the time. It's on a business trip. And I was talking to one of these French philosophical intellectuals that the French seem to breed with ever since Rousseau, I suppose, the trajectory's been there. But he made the comment as we were talking. He said, I have more in common with you, him talking to me, I have more in common with you, he said through his thick French accent. I have more in common with you because you are in the same class and intellectual level as me than I do with my own fellow citizens. So he was talking about philosophically and with a combination of class and philosophy, that he had more in common with people outside of France or around the world or any other country, Australia in this instance, than he does with his fellow citizens who do not have that same, as he would see it, class or intellectual status. Now that I think also feeds into this wider debate of elites detaching themselves from their fellow citizens. I got nothing in common with those people. And I should add, I was in a suburb recently where I stopped quickly to get some petrol or gasoline for the car and stopped quickly to get some take out food. And these people are and you forget that these people exist. They seem to be I'm sure they're not, but they seem to be almost animals. They seem to have this I don't know, this low street cunning or something like that. And they look and stand and move and walk, and you think, holy shit, I've got nothing in common with these people. Now, I don't think anything of that. I still think they're my fellow citizens entitled to equality under the law, in my view, and all those things. So I don't see them as something to detach from. I wouldn't choose to associate with them on a personal or social level, but that doesn't mean they're not entitled to all the citizen benefits that I'm entitled to. And this would appear to be the difference. The elites don't think that. The people that are the hoi polloi, the great unwashed, are not entitled to anything because they're either Nazis or potential Nazis or white supremacists and Hitler and these are the put downs that are used to say, well, they're not entitled to anything. You've been fantastic today at your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.